The quiet expectation inside Trump's shrinking inner circle turned into open panic late last night as new revelations surrounding his final plan with Ghislaine Maxwell began erupting across political and legal circles. What insiders described as a desperate last attempt to protect old alliances and prevent the release of explosive documents has now spiraled into a crisis that neither Trump nor his closest advisors can control. What began as hushed conversations and coded messages between allies has evolved into a political firestorm with prosecutors, investigators, and former loyalists all scrambling to distance themselves before the fallout reaches them. Sources familiar with the former president's orbit say that plan was not merely a legal strategy but a coordinated effort to manage damaging information before became public. The belief was that Maxwell, despite serving her sentence, still held influence over what information might emerge from sealed records connected to the Epstein network. For months speculation swirled that she was preparing to cooperate more fully in exchange for future considerations. Allies of Trump fiercely denied any ongoing communication, yet people close to the situation described repeated attempts by intermediaries to assess what she might say next and whether she could be persuaded to keep certain details locked away. This strategy rapidly unraveled when investigators obtained new communications suggesting efforts to interfere with witnesses and influence the release of sensitive material. While the contents have not yet been fully disclosed, what has surfaced is already sending shockwaves through Washington. Prosecutors reportedly discovered conversations in which associates discussed potential political leverage, media manipulation, and attempts to redirect public attention before hearings. What they did not anticipate was how quickly those discussions would be exposed and how directly they would implicate individuals once believed to be shielded by layers of deniability. Inside Trump's team, the mood shifted from cautious confidence to outright alarm. Advisors who previously dismissed the Maxwell connection as overblown now privately admit they underestimated the severity of the issue and the determination of investigators to dig deeper. The situation worsened when a former ally agreed to cooperate, providing details about meetings, encrypted messages, and discussions regarding how to preemptively counter narratives that might emerge. That cooperation reportedly opened a path for investigators to trace communications that were previously inaccessible, thought erased. As this unfolded, Trump attempted his familiar move of attacking investigators and discrediting witnesses, yet this time the response fell flat. Even some of his usual media defenders appeared hesitant, unsure of how much more information was about to surface. Publicly, Trump insisted he never coordinated anything with Maxwell and accused political enemies of manufacturing the entire situation. But behind closed doors the conversation was very different. According to a person briefed on the discussions, senior aides warned him that the remaining options for damage control were dwindling quickly and that further defiance could escalate the case rather than contain it. Meanwhile, Maxwell's representatives issued carefully crafted statements suggesting she had no involvement in any political maneuvering. Still, the tone raised eyebrows among legal experts who noted that the wording left open the possibility that she had participated in discussions through intermediaries. For investigators, that gray area only intensified their interest. If she or anyone acting on her behalf attempted to negotiate information for favors or public protection, it could broaden the scope of the inquiry dramatically. The political fallout has also begun to spread through Trump-aligned groups that hoped the Epstein saga had faded. Instead, they now face renewed scrutiny about earlier associations and events that many believed had been buried. The resurfacing of these connections threatens to reshape debates around accountability, influence, and the ways powerful individuals attempted to shield themselves from the consequences of their past dealings. Several Republican strategists expressed frustration privately, saying this controversy arrives at the worst possible moment as the party struggles to unify ahead of key political battles. What truly intensified the crisis was the release of internal memos from within a federal investigative team, describing attempts by external actors to anticipate upcoming disclosures. The memos outlined timelines, potential witness lists, and concerns about interference coming from individuals associated with political campaigns. Though names were redacted, the descriptions pointed unmistakably toward figures long linked to Trump. These memos became a turning point when they were leaked to the media, igniting a wave of reports that the former president's final plan to control the narrative had backfired catastrophically. In response, Trump's legal team called the leaks illegal and demanded immediate action, yet commentators across the political spectrum noted that outrage over leaks has become a predictable pattern whenever information threatens him. What was different this time was the level of detail emerging from inside investigative circles. Analysts say the specificity of the documents makes them difficult to dismiss as gossip or politically motivated attacks. Instead, they suggest ongoing coordination among multiple agencies, signaling that the scope may be far larger than initially assumed. Individuals who previously worked with Maxwell say she had long anticipated that attempts might be made to influence what information she provided publicly. According to one former associate, she was aware of her remaining leverage and knew that powerful figures feared her potential disclosures. That awareness may have influenced her approach to conversations over the past year, weighing how best to protect herself while also considering the long-term implications for those once considered untouchable. Legally, the situation now appears to be evolving into a broad approach that could encompass conspiracy, obstruction, and attempts to manipulate judicial processes. Former prosecutors say that if investigators can prove efforts were made to interfere with witness statements or coordinate messaging with someone involved in a high-profile criminal case, the consequences could be severe. Even without direct communication from Trump, the involvement of those in his orbit could raise significant questions about his awareness and intent. For supporters, the development represents yet another challenge in an already turbulent political landscape. Many continue to insist that the accusations are exaggerated or fabricated, but some privately admit exhaustion. Repeated controversies have created an environment in which every new scandal is met with skepticism even before facts emerge. This reflexive disbelief among supporters contrasts sharply with the mounting concern among moderates, independents, and even some conservatives who fear that the accumulation of investigations has become impossible to dismiss entirely. Media outlets have begun to assemble detailed timelines tracing both Trump's and Maxwell's interactions over the years and the emerging pattern of attempts to shape public perception. These timelines raise questions about how long this final plan had been in motion and who else may have been aware of its existence. Political commentators argue that the most damaging aspect is not necessarily the legal exposure, but the perception of desperation. The image of a former president entangled in a frantic attempt to suppress old secrets reinforces a narrative of instability and panic. International observers have also taken interest in the unfolding events, with several foreign outlets highlighting how the scandal reflects broader concerns about influence networks and the blurred lines between political power and private relationships. For America's allies, the controversy adds another layer of complexity as they navigate diplomatic interactions with officials closely aligned with Trump. For adversaries, it presents an opportunity to undermine confidence in U.S. political institutions. Within legal circles, speculation is growing that new subpoenas may target individuals previously assumed to be peripheral. Investigators are reportedly focusing on message routing, encrypted communication patterns, and financial transactions that may reveal attempts to move information or secure cooperation through indirect channels. Cyber forensic experts are now involved in reconstructing communication pathways that were believed deleted or hidden. Their findings could determine whether this becomes a landmark case of political obstruction. As pressure builds, some of Trump's confidants are considering distancing themselves. A few have already begun issuing statements clarifying their roles and denying participation in any discussions involving Maxwell. This wave of self-preservation suggests insiders fear the investigation may soon name individuals once considered safely behind the scenes. When asked whether they believe Trump orchestrated the plan directly, several former advisers declined to comment, an unusual silence among figures typically eager to defend him publicly. Maxwell's own position remains enigmatic. While her legal team insists she has no intention of revisiting any past testimonies, sources familiar with her situation say she is acutely aware of the renewed scrutiny and is weighing how much cooperation might benefit her in the long term. If she chooses to speak more openly, she could fundamentally alter the trajectory of the investigation. Prosecutors are said to be evaluating whether further testimony from her could be credible and useful, or whether it would be seen as an attempt to negotiate favorable conditions. Despite the secrecy surrounding these developments, the public impact is impossible to ignore. Polling experts say scandals involving Epstein and Maxwell evoke visceral reactions that cut across political lines. The public anger attached to the case makes any connection to powerful figures politically radioactive. Even those with no legal exposure may find themselves damaged simply by proximity to the controversy. For Trump, this presents a unique challenge since the scandal reinforces narratives that opponents have pushed for years. As the situation unfolds, analysts warn that the next phase may be even more volatile. More documents are expected to be unsealed soon, and investigators are reportedly preparing to release new findings. Legal timelines suggest that additional hearings could take place within weeks, bringing further revelations. If the emerging evidence continues to link Trump-associated figures to attempts at interference, the political consequences may be profound. For now, Trump continues to insist he had no involvement with Maxwell beyond past social interactions and that any claims of a coordinated plan are part of an orchestrated effort to damage him. But as more information surfaces, his denials are being met with increasing skepticism even among some who once defended him unwaveringly. What was intended as a final plan to suppress the past has instead unleashed a new wave of scrutiny with unpredictable consequences. This unfolding crisis now threatens to reshape upcoming political debates, media coverage and public trust. What began as whispers about private communications has become a rapidly expanding investigation with national implications. The attempt to manage revelations connected to Maxwell has not only failed but exposed deeper vulnerabilities within Trump's inner circle. Instead of controlling the narrative, his team now finds itself reacting to a storm they can no longer contain. In the end, the plan designed to shield them has blown up spectacularly, leaving allies scrambling and observers wondering what comes next.